Hey, real estate agents, welcome to the Weekly Closer. I'm your host, Jeff Underwood, along with my co-host and producer of the show, Joey Sampaga. How you doing, buddy?
Yo, what's going on, man?
Well, it's cold here right now. We're getting snow right now, so.
Oh yeah, it's kind of cold here, but
it's cold for us. Yeah, I'm chilly, but I'm a baby, so.
Me too.
hey, hey, agents, thanks a lot for tuning in. Today, our show, we're going to cover what's going on with the market, especially out in the East Valley, also on the higher end too, some of the luxury stuff. And then we're going to get into referral business versus transactional. And we got a great guest with us in the house today. That's Chris Tiller, Realtor with Russ, Lyon, Sotheby's International Realty, invited by Alex Roberts over at Security Title. Thanks for being here, Chris.
Oh, thanks for having us.
Yeah, nice having you.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, he was here.
Absolutely.
What was his show number? His episode?
Yeah, we did a show with Chris back in 2017. It was episode number 29.
Wow.
You guys have put in some work since then.
And we're up at 360 plus now. So
it's amazing.
So Chris, since it's been a while, why don't you go ahead and refresh any agents that are listening right now or watching, how long you've been in real estate and what got you into the business?
So I've been in business about 15 years now. A vast majority of that was Sotheby's. My office is in the East Valley off of Gilbert and the 101. I've kind of moved around a little bit, grew up here. So kind of the whole valley's fairly familiar for me. So that's, I haven't really had a geographical focus. I got into the business through, when I was in my early 20s, I was installing artificial grass and a guy who was kind of my consistent one of my consistent in business, he flipped houses, and I'm kind of like, hey, man, what do you do? And that's long story short. I got in with him and started bird dogging houses, and rest is history.
Nice.
So did you do much investing then back then?
Yeah. So I flipped quite a lot, especially through the crash. Focus was mostly South Phoenix, some Maryvale. And then once we kind of started coming out of that, then I transitioned to more of a standard kind of resale model.
Huh?
Yeah,
that's a little tough neighborhood there.
Listen, I grew up in Sunny Slope, man. That's my hood. I grew. I know that very comfortable down there. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, why don't we have you start then with give us your assessment of the market right now, 2023. I know we've all just went through a couple of really wacky years, it seemed like. What are you seeing right now in 2023, the real estate market there locally, and kind of where do you think it's headed?
Oh, that's an unknown. I think this is very unprecedented in a lot of ways. Southeast Valley is unique. We have quite a bit of employment over there with the price corridor, with the Intel, Orbitals, the ACKs, GoDaddy, Google, Meta's up in Mesa now. So there's a lot of employment that's still coming here. So we're still seeing some consistent demand. Chandler actually had quite the resurgence last month, I guess. In like our Cromford Market Index, it was pretty drastic of a changeover in buyer demand.
Yeah.
What we're trying to figure out, which we don't know because all this market is very unknown, is this resurgence that we're seeing in the last 60 days relevant to an actual increase in buyers, or is it because we haven't seen the increase in inventory that we normally would see? So when you're offsetting, just normal economics, supply and demand, you have to play with both of those. And so if you just account for, what you see on the news, which is interest rates have come back down in the 6.2 range, something like that from their previous 7. Mortgage applications are up. So that's why we've seen this. Well, that's true, but it might not be as prevalent as what we might see as a lack of inventory hitting the market. So we're kind of not sure where this is going to go. I think you're going to see some investor liquidation after the Super Bowl. Some people that are trying to capitalize on the last few months of really some, high income earning Airbnb inventory.
Yep.
So I think some of that's going to hit the market. But who knows? I mean, there's just a lot of that's the unknown. And then, if you can read the Fed's mind, I would be very jealous because I have no idea what they're going to do February 1st. And then ongoing, where inflation goes from here, I don't know. But I mean, if you're asking just normal market conditions, and again, we'll get into the benefits of being kind of more of a transactional versus relational agent. But when I'm in the car with buyers, there is just an obvious nervousness. That's the basic overarching theme in conversation.
Yeah.
Not just nervous about what's the value of the house going to be, where's the market headed, but how much are eggs going to be next month? My fuel prices, my healthcare costs, my education. I mean, there's so much going on right now that creates this overarching theme. How that translates out to very large purchases is going to be probably the question that happens in 2023 is where does that lay from a buyer mentality? We don't know. And how that translates into a seller's reaction in price reductions, motivation levels, and things like that is just going to be a very big conversation.
Yeah. Well, I was writing down when you were just talking about how, what's on the buyer's mind. Usually I wrote down inflation because I wanted to bring that up, thinking that, that's probably the very top of people's mind right now is how expensive are things going to get, even though a lot of the headlines say, inflation is cooling, which I get it. It's cooling. Doesn't mean that prices are technically coming down at this point. It just means that they're not going up as fast as they did a year ago or last month, looking at the year back. So
exactly. The flip side,
it's going to be interesting.
In my opinion, is you can Google these very, very easily, but credit card debt per household right now is reaching historic levels back to like '08. It's pretty substantial. So some of that you're seeing, we had with the inflation, you saw really actually a decent spending rush through the holiday season. So I think people kind of put a lot on their credit cards. So what that happens, credit cards going down, inflation going up, people are running out of a backstop. So you used to be able to at least, buffer yourself through a transition. And so that decrease in inflation, in my opinion, is more relative to a lack in consumer demand as these large box companies start to release some of their excess inventory that they over purchased before they realized inflation was going to come up. So you have Home Depot that's just, I think they're like unprecedented inventory levels sitting in warehouses. Well, the demand never came back because they just figured we were just going to have consistent demand just like we did through COVID. Well, that's just never going to be the case. It just wasn't possible. So in order to offset some of this demand, they're going to have to lower prices. So that isn't necessarily indicative of inflation changing. It's just more indicative of demand changing. So what happens after that? What do you do when your rent goes up by $400, but your credit card's maxed out? And that's what you used to live off of by buying these inflated prices like clothes and shoes. And
absolutely.
So who knows? But I can ramble on stuff forever. I dork out on it, so I apologize.
No, it's okay. No. It's good stuff.
I do think I heard was it Michael Burry talking about the whipsaw effect, I believe is what he calls it. And that's where we end up with all this excess inventory in all these stores, right? So
and so if you want even like one step further, so the excess inventory people don't think is a huge deal, right? Who cares if Home Depot's holding a bunch of inventory, right? They're a multi-billion-dollar company. Where it really impacts and changes the dynamic of the market is that the inventory that's purchased was bought from third-party vendors. So it's not like Home Depot produced X, Y, and Z that you see on the shelves. These are different companies that have produced these. So what happens is when they have excess inventory, they stop purchasing. So all these third-party vendors that supply these shelves, just walk through any store and you see all these different brands on the shelves because they're just selling it as a third party. They stop placing the orders, and then these smaller third-party companies don't have any basically demand. There's no purchase or inventory orders coming through. That's where you see unemployment. So the biggest thing that these smaller companies can do to offset their loss, their biggest expense by far, is going to be their employment costs. So that's where you start seeing unemployment. It's much easier for the tech companies to do. That's why you see them always act first, because it's very, very simple for them to do it. They can reallocate what somebody does in the office very easy, but you can't do that in a business where you're making widgets. So it just takes a little bit longer for that impact to come through. So we'll see what happens with the inventory, but that's kind of the downstream impact that is coming.
Yeah. And I think interest rates are definitely on people's mind. I mean, I went back and looked at like the average or the average rate over the last 30 years plus or whatever. The last time that we hovered in that 5.5 to 6.25 range takes us all the way back to like 2003 to 2005. Right. It's been lower than that ever since. So yeah, I think that's a big question mark too, is where do these rates end up? Right. And not to say the Fed funds rate is going to impact the mortgage rate right away or anything, but it'll be interesting to see where the mortgage rates go throughout the year.
Yeah. And I'm glad you said that, because a lot of people have this misconception on the Fed fund rate versus mortgage rate. It's very, very different. If we don't have if there's no buyers for mortgage-backed securities on the open market, that's when you start to see mortgage rates change. And so whether the supply and demand from the demand perspective on mortgage-backed securities, that's what's going to drive the rate. The reason they were so low for so long is because the government was buying them. So these unprecedented demand for mortgage-backed securities, which drive the price down to almost nothing, that evaporated. Ironically enough, if we go into any form of a recession, a lot of that money is going to pull away from the normalized market, like basically an S&P 500. It might actually redirect into a mortgage-backed security because they may find less risk in that type of a platform. So if that happens, you might actually see rates come down. But by then, if you have, unemployment double and we're at 8%, demand at the I don't care what the interest rates are if I don't have a job. So we just don't know what's going to happen. But typically that rate will drop right before you see a recession and a decline in the rate.
Even the private money loans are going up.
Absolutely.
Right. Yeah. So we are in the process of refinancing a fix and flip.
Okay.
Right. Yeah. That we're of course that we turned into an Airbnb. All right.
In town here?
Yeah, in town here. And we got in right before they raised it, and they raised it by 3 basis points. So what they're trying to do is trying to prevent anyone else from applying for a loan, is what they're doing. Okay. So even though I got in at 9.25%, now it's at 12.25%. And so it's just,
I was gonna say 9.25% isn't bad.
Yeah, it's not bad at all. So we got lucky. Right. I mean, it's still in the process, and it's a good thing that, they locked it and, it's all ready to go. So we're just waiting to go through underwriting, and hopefully it closes.
Yeah. And then are you going to keep that? What's the term on that?
That's a year. It's a bridge loan.
1 year. Yeah,
it's a 1 year. Yeah. Yeah. So, at least we'll be able to hold on to it and decide what we want to do with it.
Yeah.
Because we did get 3 of them caught during the shift. Although we do have 2 of them on Airbnb now. One of them is already booked for the Super Bowl. And nice. You're right. I mean, once we get that, then we have to decide, what are we going to do?
Right. Do we do this long term? Do we continue short?
Yeah. I mean, so far, one of the Airbnbs, it's booked till May. Oh
wow. Okay.
Yeah. And so I'm just thinking, wow, maybe we keep this, and then the other one isn't so active. Maybe we just got to play with the pricing. That one doesn't have a booking yet for Super Bowl. However, now that the teams are determined, right? Go Chiefs.
Yeah, go Chiefs.
So, question about the long term.
Sure.
If you have a short term, how are they processing on a conventional refinance the income? Are they?
Well, this is I didn't do a long-term refinance.
Not yet.
Not yet.
So, but to get out of that, how are they accounting for the income? Are they giving you full credit because it's short term?
That's a good question. I don't know yet.
Yeah, I don't either. I was just curious. Okay.
I don't know yet. So the only thing that they looked at here is the value of the property,
right? And
that we have experience in investment properties, which we do. It's just, okay, well, we have a year, and hopefully we either get to sell it or we keep it, or if we do have to refinance it to a long term, then I don't know. We're just kind of
I'm just curious, and it could certainly change by the time you need to do that. So I was just curious.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I could talk economics all day with you, Chris.
Oh, I dork out. Good. Cut from the same cloth. I love it. Yeah.
But I guess we better move on, huh? Why don't we transition to you sharing a little bit about the model for your specific real estate business? Because I know you've gone through some changes over the last 15 years, you said, right? So yeah, I mean, when I first got into it, I was working with a guy who flipped houses. So it was a very transactional focused business. And then I got into flipping. We're doing some REO property stuff. So it was very transaction focused. So it was like, how much volume can we do to offset? How can we streamline the business model? All right, let's get someone to pound signs. Let's get someone to hang lock boxes. We can get someone to photograph. So we just try to outsource all of this stuff that would be considered kind of a low, the low overhead stuff where my focus could be more on the phones, making sales, things like that. So that was good. I didn't see, especially as the market tried to shift and come back from that bottom out. It just wasn't what I got into real estate for. My desire was more to help people individually, and kind of see them through an entirety of its process, from purchase the house, move up in 7 years, have their first kid, and then, ideally sell a house to their kid. I mean, that was my process or thought process, is, how I wanted to be in this business for a very long time. So I saw, from that perspective, I didn't want to be changing with the ebbs and flows of the market relative to, just being a victim to that circumstance. So when the market crashed, if you weren't in REO, it was very difficult. It was really hard if you weren't processing 10 to 15 transactions a month, because the purchase price was $100,000. So if you just didn't have time to make the kind of money that you thought, you probably should, or what your goals were. So once I switched and I went to more of my transactional model days. And then I kind of went more relational. And that's when I really started to see a difference. It took time. That's not something that happens overnight. I mean, to establish a long-term relationship with someone, rely on their referrals, rely on their move-up purchases, their down purchases, their investment property purchases. Those are 10-year commitments. I mean, that's just something that takes that long.
Sure.
And so the process for that is different. They're not going to think of you to sell something to their neighbor if the person that showed them houses was the person you hired last week for $15 an hour. They're just not, you're not going to be top of mind. I mean, listen, something works for everybody, but it just didn't work for me.
Yeah.
I lost touch in the market. So that conversation that happens between buyers, I like having people in my car to hear the husband and wife chat about each house. So I kind of know what they're looking for, what they want. It also gives me indication of where the market's headed. That's where, I wouldn't know that buyers are anxious if I hadn't been in a car with them. It would just be my mindset on trying to look at graphs, but that's not really relevant. So, so I went that direction. Once that got kind of where I would say I not necessarily peaked, but I felt comfortable with my income. My schedule was set. I was very clear and concise in my goals. Then I decided, hey, you know what? Let's try to expand this. Let's try to grow and get more and more and more. Because, like you guys, we just get inundated with vendors, right? All the time I'm getting people, hey, I can help with your business plan. Let's do this. Let's grow this. Let's get a marketing plan. We can help with mailers. We can do all that. I mean, my phone never stops ringing from vendors. So it just has that influence on you over time that maybe I should be growing. Maybe I should be adding these systems. Maybe I should be doing more and more and more and more. So I started to do that. And then I saw that disconnect from my clients is they were like, hey, and there were a couple of situations where specifically they would reach out to me and go, hey, I thought I was going to work with you. Hey, I just saw you listed with somebody else down the street. What happened? Oh, I didn't think you were in the business anymore because every time I call you, somebody else answered the phone.
Oh, ouch.
And it was just like, well, they're right. I don't blame them. That's kind of, they liked me originally for the model that I had brought to the table. They liked my expertise. They liked my personalization, how much in depth I knew about their circumstance. And then it transitioned away and they weren't interested in that anymore. And it got to the point where I wasn't interested in that anymore. What I enjoyed about real estate was being involved in the process and watching these things pan out over time by making educated decisions for my clients. So now I've transitioned in the last 4 or 5 years back and I am all 100% personalized to my client space. And it's, I am happier. I mean, it's just been way, way more fruitful for me in every way possible. So it's been nice. Yeah. So that was kind of the transition. That was kind of long-winded.
And that's a 4 to 5 year transition, huh?
Well, it was back. It took a while to get back, I would say, to where I kind of slowly kind of found, and then obviously we had the market that we had. So it changed quite drastically. Yep. Right. Yeah. So, and it was fun. I mean, I got to see the benefits even from real time. So, when the market was crazy and we were getting 20 offers on a transaction, listing agents were absolutely killing it. I mean, there was just, you couldn't go wrong.
No. They were experts.
Right. In your client's eyes, you couldn't go wrong. You got 15 offers above listing, et cetera.
Yeah.
So the irony is the seller never knew if the agent was capable or even tried to get more.
That's right.
And they would have a transaction coordinator who would field all of the offers. They'd put in an Excel spreadsheet, highest to lowest, send out a highest and best. Whoever came back, they'd call it a day.
Yep.
And that was the gist. I mean, that was the peak of their negotiation skills was you pick, this is the top one. Let's move forward. I got 15 other ones I got to deal with, and they're all going to sell in 24 hours. I thought that was a huge disservice.
Big time.
Big time. Because at some point, I found out that this was going on, and it made it super easy for my buyers because I knew exactly what these guys were doing to sellers. So I could structure an offer that would get to the top of the list without maximizing or losing money. And it was kind of sad in a lot of ways to see what was happening to some of these different clients. So it was just, it was unique. But if I had pawned off a lot of that workload to a team, I would not have known. I wouldn't have been involved. I wouldn't be able to bring benefit. And so now that's coming full circle. And now I get those phone calls. Hey, my neighbor wants to sell their property. I know you did X, Y, and Z. Let's do this. So it worked out good.
Yeah. So I'm in the middle of a transition right now because I was focusing on, fix and flips, trying to save the assets so that I can buy and holds. But now that's kind of changed. I mean, we can still find deals out there, but the numbers really have to make sense. So now I'm going back to the whole traditional retail buyers, sellers. And, I've been holding one of my properties as an open house, the one that's on Airbnb, and it's just there, and I just hang out there as my
just
office.
Your office.
Yeah, as my office. People are coming in. I actually picked up a buyer, and then it actually felt good again.
Isn't that weird?
Yeah. To speak with people and say, oh, so you're in here. And, I was speaking with a nurse. She's like, yeah, I've been looking. I said, well, are you, have you signed something with a real estate agent? Are you working with one? She says, not really. I'm not committed. I said, did you sign anything with them? No, we didn't sign anything. I'm like, well, I'd be more than happy to help you, because now that I have the experience of fixing and flipping, she's like, yeah, we've been looking for a 3-bedroom, at least a 3-bedroom and a 3-bath. We need a 3-bath. Doing a search, nothing. Not even a 2.25, right? I said, I'll tell you what, let me just pull up some 3.2s. We'll go over there, take a look at it. And if it's something that my contractor and I can make work to where it's a 3-bedroom, 3-bath,
right,
and it's within your budget, and what we'll do is we'll find you a property where you put a lower down payment. And since you're a nurse, we can probably get you in some type of program where the down payment is a little bit lower. You can get your down payment assistance, and then you'll have more money to create that 3rd bathroom. And so we were able to do, well, we're currently looking at that right now. So there's a lot of possibilities. But anyway, my point was it felt good to work with clients again.
Well, what would she have done if you had a buyer's agent sitting in that open house? She would have walked out and went to the next one.
That's right.
There would have been no creativity. And the only way you have
right.
that is because of your experience in that situation to be able to give that to her. And if you had given her a buy-in to a buyer, even if you captured her in the open house and you gave her to a buyer's agent to go show her 3 and 2, they would have no understanding, none.
No.
And so if you even just bring the value, let's say that doesn't work with her, maybe she gets a travel gig or whatever. I guarantee you will get every referral. Anytime somebody thinks of real estate or mentions real estate to her, you have no idea how helpful this guy was. He comes at it from every angle. It's different than every experience I've ever had. So that's where I see the personalization really benefit. And I think the way you handled that will pay dividends, but it takes time. It's not something that's going to close tomorrow. So it's just one of those things.
Yeah, for sure. So Chris, do you have any team members at all at this point? I mean, you use a transaction coordinator or anything at this point?
No, our brokerage has a pretty good TC that kind of operates in the background as far as paperwork and things like that. But so I have an assistant. She's basically part-time for me. And she manages my email account. So we have a very clear communication. So when you send me an email related, for instance, to scheduling to this, she has authority to respond on my behalf. So we are in sync line. You will never hear from her. You'll never talk to her. You'll never know she even exists. But she does jump in and take some of that stuff off of my plate, just general scheduling things, looking on conflicts, doing like little price changes on MLS, things like that she feels comfortable with. But other than that, no, you will talk to me. You will deal with me. I will show you every house. And in the end, you'll see the benefit. Yeah.
What point did you decide, I need a part-time assistant?
When I had my kids.
Okay.
Yeah. As soon as I had my daughter, I said, I can't, the stuff that needs to be acted on immediately that doesn't need me. I didn't want to take time away from them.
Yeah.
And so I had to make a very clear and concise list in communication with her, not my kids, my TC, what she can do, what she can't do. And the default is if you don't know, don't do it. And then I'll jump in. No problem. Okay. So that was the kind of precipice. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
So I'm curious, what are you doing to stay in front of your database? I mean, how are you making sure that you keep top of mind with everyone?
Yeah, that's the most fun for me. So one, when you have that kind of relationship with people, they become your friends. So it's not uncommon for me on the weekends, instead of doing open houses, I go to birthday parties, I go to soccer games, I go to, you know what I mean? So I do more interactive, because when you spend 3 months showing houses with a family, you kind of become attached to them in a lot of ways. You hear their story, you know their goal set, you know what's going on. So as far as staying in touch with them from a drip campaign type perspective, I mean, I still do the newsletters. I still do, email drop campaigns, things like that are very generic. But I supplement that with, so my CRM isn't based on, hey, I know it's your anniversary because I made you fill out a questionnaire 6 months, 6 years ago, and you're just one of 2,000. I don't do it that way. I base it off of their plans, their life goals, and where they're at. So I know that when they have a baby, I call them and say, congratulations. What's your plan financially? Are we looking to have another child? Do we need to upgrade? Okay, perfect. When do you think you'd want to have that conversation? So I kind of structure my contact with them over what their goal set is of accomplishing whatever they're trying to do with their life. So I don't do it around just general text messages for birthdays and anniversaries and cats, birthdays and things that a lot of people do. I just think it's insincere and against what my business model is. So I base it more around their goal set, if that makes sense.
Is there a number of touches for a client? that you have for the year?
No, not really.
Okay.
Everyone kind of gets touched, for instance, monthly with my newsletter. People really like that. I do family updates, so they kind of know what's going on with me personally, which is kind of nice.
Mm-hmm.
I would say the most successful things that I do, as far as that is concerned, I do client appreciation parties.
Oh yeah.
So
okay.
once a year, I'll do client appreciation parties. I usually do every other year. One is a kid friendly, and then one is adult. So like last year, I rented out a movie theater and we showed Top Gun. So it was like a date night. So it's pretty cool.
How'd that work out?
Top Gun is speaks to my heart. So it was more selfish. But
I'm talking about the people coming.
No, they absolutely loved it. It was awesome. And then, it's not that expensive when you really look at how many people you can get into one place at one time.
Yeah.
And I've been doing this for so long. I have 2 weddings as a result of my client appreciation parties, that people that met.
Wow.
Yeah, it's kind of fun. So that's how long I've been doing
awesome.
it. So then this year, what I'll do is I'll rent out a dance studio and I'll hire 3 or 4 dance instructors and we'll do country line dancing.
Nice.
So I'll get 100, 150 people in a room. We'll do country line dancing 2-step. I'll do an open bar, catering some food. The expense isn't that bad, and people absolutely love it. It's just a lot of fun. Yeah.
So how do you? I'm just curious, and I know other people do it differently. But how do you, like? Let's say you do rent a ballroom, or you do rent a movie theater. Do you do some type of announcement at the beginning? Do you thank everyone? I mean, what is your whole deal there?
I have a very different way about doing this. This isn't a real estate event that happens to be fun. This is a fun event. I just happen to be in real estate.
Okay.
And the messaging is very different. There is nothing sales related about the event at all. They all know I'm in real estate. That's why they got the invite. At the very beginning, I'll typically bring up a sponsor, like my mortgage guy, Duncan Robertson. Yeah. With VIP. Okay. Security comes with me, Tara Lavoie. She's awesome. So I'll go, hey, these guys sponsored the event. You guys know I'm in real estate. I'm not going to bug you to death. Let's go have a good time. Okay. And that's it.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So they don't do a little 30-second spiel or anything like that. Okay.
Nope. I've been to those. Yeah. And I just, even that half second of discomfort that comes across as salesy, I want absolutely nothing to do with.
Wow.
That's not me. I'm not trying to get the next transaction at all. That is not my focus.
So you just mention their names and say they sponsored it and just say thank you for them. And I thank them. And
it's funny now because they're all friends with them. Yeah. Like it's like, hey, you guys, you know who this is, right? We don't need to rehash. We met 6 months ago again, so it's like an ongoing relationship.
Right. Perfect.
So do you 2-step?
I do not.
That's why he takes dance lessons.
Right? I just figured you were picking one that you already knew how to do.
No, you try to make yourself uncomfortable to grow a little bit, right? I guess that's the idea. Yeah. I guess I should go in Arizona.
You should.
Yeah. That's fun.
Before we move to the next segment, why don't we, Chris, if there are agents that are listening right now that, we've seen a slowdown in the market, right, over the last 3 to 6 months. What would your message to an agent who's thinking, gosh, I need to do something right now, to change, right? To get some business going forward in 2023. What would you tell them?
Think about what you want your business model to be, what you think is going to be successful for you, and stop comparing yourself to other agents. You need to find what's going to work for you. Find a production level that's going to keep you comfortable. And, theoretically, my message is you need to be saving 50% of your income, period. It needs to be set aside. If you don't, what you're seeing is agents right now, and I'm having these conversations daily, where I've heard agents say, what do we have to do to get this done? I have to get this commission. And that's a really, really bad place to be. On some level, I don't feel bad for the agents. I do in some ways, but I feel really bad for their client, because now you start to make sacrifices on their behalf in order to make yourself whole. And that's not a good place to be. So I would say restructure your business, accept what the market is now, because when it improves, that's just all gravy that you should be setting aside and trying to plan different pieces of income. So for instance, I have rental properties. I invest substantially because I save 50%, but they need to be finding a way that they don't need the commission. They need the relationship. Sure. And if they can go that route and focus on the future from that perspective. Now the day to day, what do they need to do? They need to sit in an open house every day, all day, forever. I mean, you can't, there's no other way around it. You can't mail enough postcards. You can't call enough expireds and cancel. There's not enough you can do in this market because so many people are struggling. They're hungry. You're starting to see it. Mortgage companies are folding. Brokers are getting out of the business. Title companies are folding. Agents are going back to substitute teaching or whatever they were doing before. And it's a shame, but it's sometimes, it just needs to get a clearance. And so restructure your mindset on what the market needs to be and where you need to be financially. And you should come out of this okay.
Yeah. Well, I do think a lot of people jumped into the business over the last couple of years too.
Anybody can do it, right?
What's that?
Anybody can do it, right? It's easy.
This is the time where we're starting to filter out the ones who don't.
Yeah. No, you find out very quickly. Yeah. It's like, oh, so people don't just jump in your car and want to buy houses. No,
or just buy houses and offer $50,000 more than what it's worth.
Yeah. It's reality is starting to set in on what a normal market's supposed to look like.
Yeah.
If you haven't been in the business for more than 5 years, what we're seeing now is actually fairly normal. I mean, the production level that we're seeing as far as inventory counts on a long enough time horizon, we're normalized. But people are freaking out because we've had a doubling of real estate agents, and not enough transactions to go around. So here we are.
For sure. I'm curious, are your rental properties, are they all local or did you invest other parts of the country too?
I did do other parts. I was in Indiana for a little while. I didn't like the disconnection and the turnover rate. The Burr method essentially is what was going on. Sure. I do like the 1% rule. It's not as feasible here in this market, but that's kind of why I went out of state, was to try to capitalize on the 1%. What they forget to mention is that the turnover and the damage that people do when they're buying and renting $80,000 houses is just never ending. It's constant management and headaches. Even if you have a property management company doing it, you have to switch property management companies every 2 years because you find out that it doesn't cost $100 to mow the yard and their brother's uncle's cousin owns the landscaping business. And it's just that. So you have to deal with that. But locally, my rentals are great. I have a different mentality. I get multi-year. I don't do less than 3-year leases because I don't want turnover. So they're doing great.
Awesome.
All right. Any final thoughts before we move to the next segment?
No, thank you for what you guys do. I'm an avid watcher, so I appreciate your work.
All right. Well, let's get in the ring then. A big shout out first to Security Title Agency and Fidelity National Home Warranty for sponsoring the show. We appreciate them. All right, here we go. Chris, you ready?
And what are we doing?
I'm going to do some rapid fire for you here real quick. Right, how about podcast? Do you like to listen to podcasts or watch YouTube videos?
Ooh, podcasts mostly. Yeah.
Because you're in the car mostly.
Yes.
Yeah.
How about pizza or cheeseburgers?
Cheeseburgers. Yeah.
All right. How about your favorite vacation destination?
I like California because I like the look of my kids when we go to Disney. That's changed drastically, right?
Oh, that's awesome.
Watching that smile is priceless.
Yeah. Favorite activity outside of work?
I really like to exercise. So that's kind of my thing. I box, which is kind of silly, but
no, there's nothing wrong.
Oh, no, it's not. Yeah, I did too. Where do you box?
It was called Box Out in Mesa, but they just bought the Title Gym off of I-10 and Ray Road.
Okay.
Yeah, and those guys are great.
Yeah.
They're all heavyweights, so they beat me up every day.
Do you compete or do you just...
So I had 2 fights, and I had one in 19 and one in 20.
Okay.
Just as kind of a bucket list item.
Yeah.
I went 1-1, so I got my win.
Bad.
I got my loss. Those were the 2 things I wanted. Luckily enough, they were all in 2 fights. I might do some master stuff. So once you hit 40, I just turned 40, you can do more masters. But
is it the amateur style with the...
Yeah, it's all amateur.
Oh, okay.
All amateur.
Okay. Yeah.
Man, these kids at 20 are just, you realize how fast they are versus what you are now.
How much
40.
stamina they have.
It's never ending. Yeah.
So one of my buddies and I trained at the Iron Gloves in Tempe.
Yep. Yeah.
We like that gym a lot. They're really nice people.
They have a great fight team, actually. They're a little bit, this is going to sound terrible, but they're a Mexican gym. So that a lot of their fighters are Mexican. And so I can't compete with that. Their volume, they are good. Their volume is insane. Their precision is great. Cardio is never ending. It's crazy.
Yeah.
So I needed to, again, terrible. I need to find a black gym because my worst thing is my rhythm. And that's what I wanted to work on. I like that style a lot more. So that's why I found those guys that box out. But do that. I got some really good friends at that gym over in Tempe. It's pretty funny. Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's cool. It's cool. All right. Final question for you. How about your favorite superhero?
Oh, probably Batman.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah. I like Batman. Yeah. What's yours?
I like Captain America.
Oh, that's a good
I
one.
don't know if he's a superhero necessarily, but
of course he is.
Yeah.
He's in the Avengers, right? Or whatever. What are those?
Yeah.
What's yours?
Gosh.
It's a hard one, huh?
Yeah, it is, but I just have to say Wonder Woman.
Wonder Woman?
I thought you were going to say Minnie Mouse.
That's a first. I mean, she's amazing. Don't get me wrong. Yeah.
She is amazing. So, yeah.
That's funny. That's a first. Have you heard that on here yet?
I don't know. Have you said Wonder Woman before?
I don't know. I don't remember.
I think you might have. Way back.
Right. That's not bad.
So, well, I want to ask a question. I know we probably asked this the first time you were here, but I just like to hear it is, what's the best advice that you've ever gotten?
Learn from other people's mistakes.
Nice.
That would probably be the best one. Yeah. Nobody's reinventing the wheel here for the most part.
That's right.
If you can just have really, really good mentors that explain to you that, listen, when I jumped off the cliff and did this, don't do that. And then you're going to save yourself a ton of learning experiences that you can't afford. So that would be one I've taken to heart for sure.
I learned that today. I never spike your hair up like Joey when you're on camera.
Man, it's tough in here.
I know. Wow.
Man.
Oh, man.
Oh, gosh.
Save you off camera.
I know.
Hey, Chris, do you want to share your contact info if any agents want to reach out to you?
Yeah, chris.tiller@russlyon.com, RUSSLYON. And then my cell anytime. I love chatting with agents and collaborating. So 602-561-1346.
Awesome, man. Thanks so much for being in here, guys.
I appreciate it. Thank you, guys.
Yeah, that was a great show.
Appreciate it.
Enjoy
All
my
right,
visit.
agents. Until next time, we will see you later.
Bye.
Adios.
Nice.